There's been times when I've thought, you know what? If I didn't eat this week,
Right.
I could have a lot of money this week, and I could invest that.
In
But
college,
that's not a good idea. Don't do
In
that.
college, I had a lot of sleep for dinner. It was just like, oh, I guess I'm going to go to sleep. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 10 of the Will and Cody show. Thank you for joining us, and thanks for watching. Last week we talked a little bit about emergency funds and stimulus checks. And so we got a real life example when Cody decided to bust his arm playing, or his hand playing softball. So that was a great illustration. So Cody, how is your hand doing this week?
That's
Any
okay.
update?
Yeah, it's okay. I got a new cast, so this one's not as big. But when they tell you to put on a cast, right, they tell you, hey, act like you're holding a beer can. Because I guess if you hold your fingers straight, like that's not... I don't know. I'm not a doctor. But anyway, they told me to hold it like a beer can. And then they're like, okay, we're going to wrap it up. But one of the ladies that was holding my arm, she decided to like turn my wrist. And so for those that are listening, you can't understand. I'm sorry. But my arm like makes an L.
It looks like it's still broken. It looks so messed up. Yeah, it looks like it's still broken.
I've got like the worst cramp ever and I can't get rid of it.
It's just stuck. So
it's stuck there.
He's still in agony. So sorry about that.
Anyway.
And then also for anybody that's watching, Cody is also in the middle of a storm outside his area. So if his video goes out, we'll just enjoy the lovely sound of his voice and that'll be it.
Sorry.
So I'll have to endure that.
If it goes black, at least I got the recording end over here. So
yeah, that should be it. And we are recording.
I remember this time.
Last time. So if you didn't catch that video, we had a funny moment where, so we record video through Zoom when we meet, but just because Zoom's quality is sometimes iffy, we will record our audio separately. So each one of us records our audio and then we'll use that. So we have a higher quality for when you watch. So it doesn't get all messed up sometimes based on our internet. So with that, we were recording well on Zoom, low quality, but Cody forgot to record his high quality stuff. So it made for a great moment and maybe a meme. We might make some memes out of that.
There's a great face of William. Let me see if I can grab it. For those who can see that right there, he's just so disappointed in me.
The disappointed face. So we may just make that into like different financial decisions and then just my reaction of like, just I'm disappointed in you. It looks like
you don't have an IRA.
Yeah, it looks like a dad who's disappointed in his kids. You know, like, come on, I expected better. You know, so.
So those that are listening, like, just go check out our TikTok or watch it on YouTube. It was in the last podcast as well.
I think it's on Instagram too. Check it out.
Yeah, it's on it.
Instagram. But yeah, I was just very disappointed in Cody because we were rolling, we were doing well in that. And then we just had to stop and start over.
It was the best intro ever, and I wasn't recording, so
I messed it up. So, but no, we'll get through. So we are recording today. So let's go ahead and jump in, Cody. I think today we wanted to talk about making purchases. So we talk a little bit about budgeting, but we wanted to do a little bit more of the thought process that goes through our minds when making a purchase or when just planning. When you're going to actually spend the money that you've budgeted. And so, we've kind of just thought through a few guiding principles. And so I don't know, Cody, if you want to kick us off about what you think in regards to a purchase, big or small. So this could be anywhere from going to grab groceries, for that week, or it could be, buying a car, on up through that. So we're trying to be basic here. So it could apply to a lot of different things. But what would you say we would start out with, Cody, when thinking about a purchase?
Yeah, well, I mean, first we need to think about like what's the purpose of the purchase. We have to spend money, right? If we didn't spend money, then we'd have a lot of money, right? But we got to spend money to live. And there's been times when I've thought, you know what? If I didn't eat this week, I could have a lot of money this week and I could invest that. But that's not a good idea. Don't do that.
Yeah. In college, I had a lot of sleep for dinner. It was just like, I guess I'm going to go to sleep.
Yeah. Ramen noodles, right?
Exactly.
And so we got to make, we got to decide what's important, what's the purpose of the purchase, right? And so we got to look at value, but then we got to look at how much it costs. And then there's just a lot of things that we got to think about. We got to think about our time that we're putting into it. We're going to go through kind of all of that. But in general, we need to decide if it's necessary. We need to look at if it's urgent, and then we need to look at like what its value is, not just in general, but like what it is to us. What is it going to, how is it going to benefit us? So if something is both urgent and necessary, we need to look at the emergency fund for pulling funds out to handle that. This would be an example, right?
Yeah, that was urgent and necessary.
Yeah, urgent and necessary. That's why it's called urgent care. That's why I went there. But anyway, so that's to decide to use your emergency fund. But buying food doesn't count, right?
Right.
Buying your groceries, putting gas in your car, things like that. That's not the same thing. So we have to think about it a little bit differently. So with groceries, for us, we like to think like, what is the value of the food that we're getting? We don't just we try to buy as cheap as possible, but we don't just buy cheap. We try to buy, decent value because we want something that's good for us. We try to eat relatively healthy. We're actually mostly vegetarians, just because meat's really expensive. And so we've been able to have a pretty healthy life as vegetarians and been able to get by pretty cheap.
We still eat a lot of meat, in case you're wondering.
Oh yeah, you don't have to do this.
My wife and I still eat plenty of meat, so no.
You don't have to do this.
Yeah,
but we've been able to save a pretty good chunk of change with it, but be able to live pretty healthy lives and kind of fuel ourselves. So we think of like food as fuel, kind of like the same way you put gas in your car. Some people, food is everything to them. They like to spend a good amount of money, going out to eat, things like that. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's kind of your happiness, your joy, then go for it. But that's not really our happiness and joy. We don't really think about food as something that's fun. My wife and I, we would rather, eat at home to save money, to be able to then go out and go on an adventure, go hiking, go, maybe go shopping, maybe save and go buy something special. And so you just kind of got to find that value, what's important. And so, when we think about margin, trying to create that margin so we can put money towards, paying ourselves, paying for the future, stuff like that. If we're smart about our buying, that is one of the best ways to create margin. We always say, the best way to create margin is to lower expenses and increase income. And I personally like to lower the expenses first as much as I can before I increase that income. Because if I increase my income, I'm putting a lot of extra time that I could spend with my wife, or, could be doing other things like hobbies and stuff like that. So if it's not necessary, if I can just make some cuts, if I can make some wise decisions, then, I can help create that margin. And that's what we try to do right now.
Yeah, no, I think, first off, is it necessary? I think patience also plays a role into it of if, you bought something today, do you need it today? Or if you waited a week or two, could there be a cheaper option that, you could go with? Obviously, as we mentioned, stuff like groceries, it's not going to be like, oh, I just won't buy groceries this week. Like, if you need food, you have to buy food. But,
Right.
For those other things, it's like, is there an incentive to be patient rather than feeling rushed? A lot of times that's how we get to, as we say, that impulse buy, is because we felt like we were rushed into it. It was a limited time sale. I had to get in, now. But be patient. And a good rule of thumb, with this is if it's a big purchase, and I don't know what a big purchase is to you. For my wife and I, I'm trying to think the dollar amount. It would probably be, anything above, $500 or $1,000. I would say I'd try to wait a day to buy. Just give it one day just to think it through. For some, you might be like, oh, I don't care if it's, anything above 5,000 or 10,000, whatever your number is. For my wife and I, we just don't have as much right now. So we just would need to take some time just to think through and make sure we're making the right choice. Obviously, if it's urgent and necessary, we're going to just pull the trigger and do it. But this is something that, if it's not really as urgent, not really as necessary, we're just going to take at least a day, to let it sink in, and then we'll go ahead and go through with it. So I think patience plays a role into that as well. And then the second thing that you kind of got into, that I would say is looking at value as opposed to just cheap. I think sometimes, we look at budgeting and we think, oh, I've got to be a cheapskate about everything. I'm going to be that person hogging like the ketchup packets from Out to Eat, or like saving napkins and utensils from, everything. And I'm going to be, like we go to that extreme, but it's also just looking at, okay, what's a good value of my buy? I'm not necessarily just going to buy the cheapest option, because what if it breaks tomorrow? Then you got to buy another one. So looking at, or as you mentioned, like if you, as far as groceries, you want to get good fuel for your body. So necessarily going cheap may not be the best option. You want to go for the best value, which is the most, the most you can get for the least amount of dollars. And so not purely looking at price, I think does affect it. Sure, we want to spend less, but I'd rather be willing to spend more if I knew the thing was worth it and it was going to last me, a while, and it was going to be worth the dollars versus just wasting it on something cheap. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's kind of how I look at that second point is, just because it's the cheaper option doesn't always mean it's the best one.
Yeah. That's something my dad used to say about value was, just just make the best decision financially. If something's going to last you longer, and you're going to get your worth out of it, then that would be better than something that's just going to break on you like the next week. The same went for food. If we eat really, really cheap stuff, like super processed foods like that, you're going to sacrifice your health later and you will pay for it eventually.
Yeah.
And that's what he told us. He said, sometimes it's better to spend a little bit more now so you don't have to spend more later. And, and there's a balance to that. We have to find that balance. And there's a lot of experimenting that goes on with that. I mean, whenever we're looking at our budget and we're trying to, get groceries and stuff, we think, okay, well, how can we cut this? We say, well, we can not buy these vegetables. And then my wife's like, well, that's probably not a good idea. Well, let's not buy vitamins. That's probably not a good idea. Well, let's not buy pizza. Okay, that might be a good idea, right?
Yeah. Right.
And so it's just things like that. And, you're never going to get it right on the first try. It's a constant, just figuring out a rhythm, a routine, and then new stuff comes out all the time. And I'll be honest with you, if there's something at the grocery store and I got a little extra in the budget and it's like, that's cool, I want that, I sometimes get it. For example, I had an impulse buy. I'm lactose intolerant, right? And I found out that Dairy Queen has dairy-free dilly bars. I didn't even look at my budget. I went straight to a Dairy Queen the moment I learned this.
Automatic.
And I bought a whole pack of it. And I figured it out later. So I'm not saying you should do that, but I did. So
there's room for that. Yeah.
There's room for that.
No, that's good.
and that brings me joy. So there's a great value in that. There's good value in dilly bars,
There is. Yeah, there is. Another thing I've realized too is like clothes. A lot of times, like I just don't buy clothes for myself. Honestly, I really don't. But one thing I have noticed is I used to be like, oh, just what's the cheapest I could get? But then it'll wear out. And so I've realized I'd rather have one, good item that'll last me a while than 5 or 10 that are just going to wear out, or I don't even like. You know what I mean? I'll take one good shirt that I will love and will wear consistently over 5 that I'm kind of feel about. Right. And so, that's another thing that looking at that value really makes a difference. So don't just buy the most expensive thinking that's the best, will last you the longest. But look at that value. And so have that into your, as you're looking at it. And then I'd say the third thing that'd be important, is just to compare prices. A lot of times I think we just take stuff for granted of, okay, that's the price, but we don't look around, and see what other stuff is out there. And then even looking for some items, looking at used options. So maybe we look at, okay, here's what it is at Target versus Walmart, but what about, looking on Facebook Marketplace or OfferUp or something like that? There are definitely options, for those bigger items that you could find. Like some stuff you look at it, it's like, okay, used, this is kind of trash. But there is good used options out there. You just kind of have to parse through things. Yeah. So I think taking a little bit of time for those bigger purchases just to see, okay, what's there that's used, and not just taking that for granted that it's all going to be junk. Because I think you could find some good value in used. as opposed to just buying new automatically. Now, obviously,
Absolutely.
there's certain things like groceries. Okay, you're going to want to buy those new. Don't buy them used. But you know what I mean? So for stuff, bigger items, like furniture or, sometimes tools or something like that, you could find a pretty good options, in a used area.
Yeah. Everybody's selling TVs on Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah, you can find new TVs that people they're barely
Great
been
deals.
used. Yeah.
Yeah, great deals. So yeah, that's huge. I mean, sometimes we don't think about that. It's like used, because then we try to talk ourselves out of it. Oh, there's no warranty with it. I can't take it back, stuff like that. But I've got some good stuff used, either secondhand through somebody I know, or buying it off of Facebook Marketplace or OfferUp or Craigslist, something like that. So that's definitely an option we need to consider, need to look at. I want to go back to what you were saying about being patient. I mean, sometimes we think we just need something, and then we find a way that we can live without needing it. And then we find out, you know what, not that big a deal.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And, let's say you need like a couch or something, and then you figured out, lawn chairs work out for a little while. That might suck. Right. But then, if you figure out, okay, this is okay for a little while, this is okay for a month or two, I can save up. Maybe I can save up and buy a nicer one than just buying one on Facebook Marketplace. Maybe you really do want a nice one, and you figured out a way to just go on with life. Everything's okay. We're saving. And then I bought a really, really nice one. We did that with the TV ones, and so being patient, definitely just consider it. See how much you really, really need it. Maybe just a want, maybe, if my computer died on me, I would be like, oh no, like my gaming computer, like I'd be like, I gotta get one now, right? I gotta go fix this thing. But if I really think about it, I got this laptop I'm using right now. Do I really need it? And then, just be patient. Just take a couple of days, see what life is like, and then try to adjust. We make a lot of impulse buys, and our market is designed for that. Salesmen know that we make impulse buys all the time. And they also know that if you walk away, 9 times out of 10, they lost the sale, right? Because their goal is to sell. Well, your goal is to make a wise decision. And a lot of the times, especially for me, walking away and thinking about it, I never regret thinking about something. Right. So definitely consider patience. Yeah. Definitely consider that.
Yeah, it's the key. Yeah. So that could be a good option. Yeah. Learning, sometimes going without can be a good thing for us. As Americans, we sometimes are not used to going without things as opposed to people in other parts of the world or even people within our own country. And so sometimes just getting a little taste of that, we can live, we'll be okay. And then the lawn chair in the living room, that's totally a bachelor setup. That's the,
I'm not saying I've done that before.
That's the typical, bachelor setup, and having a nice TV sitting on a cardboard box and then having lawn chairs. But hey, whatever works, whatever you want to do. But I like that, sometimes it is worth it to save up a little bit more, and then get, something a little bit nicer. I think that could be an option, as well. And then going just back to the, the comparing prices, I would say another thing, with especially cars, I would say look at used. I think you could find, it's crazy. You could find something that's not that old, only a few years old, and it's so much cheaper than going a new, going for a new one. And so I think that's something definitely to look at, where you could find just something that's really nice. It's going to be as new, it's going to be like, pretty much brand new, but you're able to pay way less just because it's not brand new. And so, I think there's definitely great value to be had there. And then same thing, if you want to take more time and save up, then you can get something a little bit nicer. But looking at used, I think definitely will pay off. And I think that goes into patience. I think buying used takes a little bit more time than buying new. Buying new, it's kind of like, okay, it's there, I buy it. But buying used, it's like, all right, where is it? I gotta, find out.
Gotta find it.
Kind of scour for it. And so I think you can get rewarded for that. But that kind of leads me into the next point that we've talked about, which is you also want to value your time in this. So we talk about budgeting money, but you also want to budget your time. And I've known like way too many people that will spend hours and hours and hours researching and comparing prices and looking for something that's really only going to cost them like an extra like $2 or $3. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, that's not really the, the how I want to spend my time to save, $5. And same thing with gas. Like it's the classic joke of somebody that drives across town to save 3 cents on gas. It's like, well, you used up your time, and then you also used up, your actual gas money driving there. But I think the same thing applies, to things like groceries. Like, yes, you could buy it from 5 different stores, your groceries from 5 different stores, and possibly save a little bit of money. But how much time did that take out of your day? How much time was actually spent? And so I think we need to look at that and not just take it for granted that, I have to find the cheapest thing. Because also, like, your time's worth stuff. It's worth money. So don't just waste your time only to gain a little bit in savings. It's not going to be the end of the world, if you pay a little bit more for the convenience. But I'd say don't do that for everything. But
yeah, absolutely. I mean, definitely like outweigh it. Like, I know some people that will go drive 20, 30 minutes from one store to another store because that store was running a buy one, get one free on, cereal. And I know the amount of gas they spent in that Subaru was well over the $250 they saved to get some mini wheats, right?
Right.
But my wife and I were in a place where there's several stores literally right together. And so we could walk to the next store, right? We could park our car, walk to one, walk to the other, or just drive down the block. And so we've actually been able to save a lot of money by getting certain things here, certain things here, certain things here, because they're all within, a quarter of a mile from each other. So just outweigh it. Just take a look at it. If your Walmart is 30 minutes away and there's no other store near you, then that's the best bet for you. Go to Walmart, make a budget, stick to it, and whatever you get, you get. But if you've got like a ton of stores, then maybe it is smart to just think about that, kind of plan out a system. But yeah, your time is worth something. We do need to remember that our time is worth something. There is this thing called opportunity cost.
Yeah.
And if our time is spent in one place and we're not putting it towards something else that could potentially make us money, then we're losing money. Potentially, unless there's a lot of savings involved during the time that we spent. And, if it's on like a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, you're not at work, then there's really not much opportunity cost for us. Right. But still, it's something to think about. You could be like researching a side hustle, or, I got a friend that Ubers just whenever he can. Whenever he's got something, he's just Ubering. And so to him, it's not really worth his time to sit down for a couple of hours and research something when he could go out and Uber and go make $20 an hour. So, it's something to think about. We definitely need to be more intentional with our buying, with our planning of our time. We could save a lot of money if we just keep these things in mind.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. And then even, as we look, we kind of mostly focus on money here, but I think also there's other things you could do with your time that are really valuable. Like instead of spending 3 or 4 hours on a Saturday trying to save a few bucks, spend the time with your family. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of other productive things you can do other than just focusing on money. So I think weigh it out. For big purchases, sure, do your research, investigate, compare prices, shop around. But for the small things, you really need to weigh out your time. I think sometimes we really don't put enough value on what we can do with our time just for the productivity's sake. So like I could go spend time, with my wife, or spend time with my siblings or something, and really just, or go do, anything, number of things that need to get done around the house versus sitting there and doing research for a while just to save a few bucks. So I think we put a small value on ourselves when we say like, oh, I spent 30 minutes, but I saved $2. It's like, oh, is that really your 30 minutes is worth $2? So I think let's look at it. And then sometimes it's not worth the small, amounts to drive between two places. So I'll give you an example of one. My wife and I, about a year ago, we were both in, full-time schedules. So now she's working part-time and I'm still working full-time, but we both had full-time. She was working plus going to school. And so it was just really difficult for us to have a lot of free time together. And so what we decided to do for a few months was we did the grocery pickup where, you submit your grocery order ahead of time and then you just pull up and then they just put it in your car and you can leave. And it was difficult because we had to go to a store that was a little more expensive than the one that we usually get our groceries from. And then you had to pay a small fee. Honestly, it's not bad, to get it delivered curbside. But for us, it was worth it because then we had the evening together or we had the rest of the day together. It wasn't like we were spending that time in a grocery store. We could have spent it, go through it together. But it was just that extra time we could do what we want. We could go where we want.
Right.
That was really worth it for us during that time of our life. And so now we're at a place, okay, we've got a little more time where it is worth it to still, to go in, and shop at the store we want to go to. But for that period of time, it was like we valued the time together more than, the few dollars we were saving.
Right.
And so that's just one example, of us, together. And so just look at that. Not everything is about money. So even just more time with your family can be something you need to look at.
Absolutely.
Don't just do everything because of convenience sake. So I wouldn't, always I wouldn't DoorDash everything instead of going out, to get it because that adds up quick instead of you just getting in your car and going to get it. But for some things, let's look at the time savings as well. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, dude, that DoorDash is like it's super
pricey.
Convenient, but it does rack up. Like it's pretty pricey. And I found that, I can just make lunch and take it to work. Right. And now I, work at home mostly. So it's here. So there's a lot of savings.
Or you just get in your car and go get it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It's, for me, it's like 2 miles away. So obviously for some other people, that may not be the case. I know if I got friends that, they put a lot of time at work and to them, if they stop work and they clock out for an hour, whatever their hourly rate is, it's a lot. And to them, it is worth just grabbing that DoorDash and it just show up.
Yeah.
Because they know their opportunity cost, right? They know what their hourly time is worth. And like what you were saying, to do that curbside pickup. I know a friend of mine that would get like curbside right after work and then would get home and then would be like teaching and doing side hustles and stuff like that. And they knew their opportunity cost. And they told me, it's like, this is more, this store is a lot more, but they had this opportunity where I could save time. And, saving time can be a good way to save money. And in other ways, sometimes it can't be. For me, it may not be worth it, especially since I'm so close to a store, and my wife and I can just make a date out of it, then it might not be the case. But for other people, it may be the case, right? So really, we need to, at the end of the day, this whole thing that we're talking about is really just sitting down and doing the math. Sitting down, finding out what is value to you, what is really important, and calculating it, coming up with an answer, and following through with it. We do a lot of stuff just kind of fly by the seat of our pants, right?
Yeah.
We just kind of, we need to go get groceries. Okay, let's go do it. Oh, I need lunch. Okay, let's go do it. If we get intentional about things and we understand these simple concepts, we can create time, we can create margin, and we can just, have a more productive life. And it may be the case, you don't have to go get a side hustle. You don't have to do all these things. You can spend more time with your family and you're still able to meet your financial goals and your time goals to spend time with your family, such like that. So.
Yeah. I know we're running short on time, but I got two more things that I want to mention. One, just really quick, look at reviews of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Don't sit there for hours. Again, going back to the time and look at reviews. And then also take it with a grain of salt that I usually find either people that had the best experience ever or the worst experience ever are like the only ones that write reviews. Like, I don't know about you, but if I had like a mild experience, I'm usually not, leaving a review. So
It's
take
not a lot
that
of
with a
3
grain of
stars.
salt. Right. It's like, it's usually, you're going to read a lot of the bad reviews, the people that had a bad experience. But that could be a good thing. Brand reputation, can be a thing as far as what you're getting. And then the second thing that I want to mention is a lot of the stuff that Cody and I talk about. It has the ultimate goal of financial freedom, which is not having to worry about money. So, it's you do whatever you want, regardless of what it pays, or you don't really have to think about or worry about money. Again, it's taken care of. And so one thing I'd say is that, throughout this journey, you don't want to sit there stressing about every dollar and cent when the goal is to not worry about money. You know what I mean? Like a good way to build practice is like, okay, you put up guardrails, and this is kind of what we've kind of said. These are some guidelines, ways of thinking to avoid making bigger mistakes or find some value. But don't get in the habit of, sitting there for every penny. You got to find, savings. Also, you want your time. That's the goal of this whole thing, is to free up your time to do what you want and not have to worry about money. So a good way to practice that is, set up boundaries. Okay. This is kind of generally your thought process. But don't fall into the trap of that you have to be a super cheapskate and, save everything. And, you can't ever do anything fun or enjoyable again. It's like, that's not the point. The point is to enjoy your time, but you're just making smaller sacrifices. And as you said, being intentional and planning things out that will save you in the long run.
Yeah.
So it's not purely like you have to go without everything. It's like, okay, you're just taking the extra time, thinking it through, and it will reward you, on the back end.
So you can be a super duper cheapskate if you want to, if you've got goals in mind and that's your plan, is to maybe get out of debt really quick or build an emergency fund really fast. And those kind of things can help you. But Will's right. The ultimate goal is to not worry about money. And if we build these safeguards, these guardrails, these, just simple habits, and then, following a budget, investing, things like that. When we're older, when we're in our 40s and 50s, and, hopefully 40s and 50s for me, I'd like to retire early. But anyway, when we're retirement age, then we're not worrying about it. The money's there. We already have these habits in place. We've already learned how to be happy with the habits that we've built, the life that we've created. And now we don't have to worry about it at all. It's right now, I don't really have to worry much either, because I've got the budget in place. I have the emergency fund there. There are no debts taking up my income. I've got a margin. It's a small margin, but it's a margin. And I know what that'll look like, those investments and everything. So really, it's just smooth sailing from here. It's not really. Life is life. Yeah. But it's one less thing to worry about. And of course, if I lose my income, then I got a lot to worry about. But then I got an emergency fund. So it's it's really just helping us. It's taking away things to worry about so we can focus on other things. Right. Exactly. The number one cause of divorce is money. So what happens if you just made money not really that big of a deal? What if everything was okay? Just think of how much your life could be improved. And that's what we're trying to do.
To worry about. Yeah.
Really. Yeah. I mean, money is a tool. I mean, we're not here to tell you how to get rich. I mean, maybe, we're telling you how to build wealth and how to, it's part of it. But really telling you how to live a life where you're not too worried about this one thing, so you can focus on all these other things. Yeah.
No, it's good stuff. So I think it's the balance. We talk about that a lot, of having a balance with things. So I say, we like to save money, and, as far as if you can tell a little bit of our perspectives, Cody is a little more, interested in how can we save some money. And I'm more like, we'll look at it, but I'm not going to pay as much attention. And that's okay. We can, it's whatever works for you and whatever fits, but I think these guiding principles can kind of help, and hopefully will help you, as you look at making purchases, small or big, just having kind of this mindset and kind of keep that, the checks in place. And so you don't have to worry about it, so you're not going to make a big mistake, so you can keep living your life and still meet your goals. So.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff. We're looking at, we're about time. So thanks for joining us. Cody, any other last minute thoughts? We good?
No, I think we're good. We covered everything. We'll probably get back into this again, though. This is a buying guide, basically. Yeah. We'll probably talk more about cars, and probably should talk about my car one of these days. The thing's Rust bucket that somehow still keeps going. So There's a whole there's a lot to this, and it's really just a learning process. There's a lot of experimenting that goes on, and we'll try to share as much as we can as we learn, because we're learning this too. We don't really have all the answers. We've got these fundamentals that we're following, and we're sharing them with you.
Yeah. So stay tuned. Do all the things, subscribe, and like whatever. Leave us a comment if you have any thoughts, or if you thought maybe there's another thing, a good budget guide principle that you would add to our list. Let us know. If you have any thoughts or have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. As always, go to www.askwillandcody.com. Or is it just willandcody.com?
It's just Will and Cody. Joe said it.
That's all right. The email is askwillandcody. That's always good to use. So askwillandcody@gmail.com. Or if you want to do just willandcody.com, feel free to reach out to us. Leave us any response. We appreciate the feedback. So thanks for listening. This has been episode 10 of the Will and Cody Show. Hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you.
See you guys.